Hey, what's going on, ADPI Nation? I have another incredible guest for you on the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast. My name is Kevin Brenner. I am the host. I am the bus driver for today. And today we have Marine veteran Max Emory, and he's going to be talking to us about something that's a little bit overlooked in the real estate industry. Can't even talk. Successful military real estate investor already. And like I said, Marine, once Marine, always Marine. But we're going to be talking about bookkeeping. And there's no real way to make bookkeeping exciting, but I'm going to try my damnedest because it's really, really important. It's very overlooked. And I think this is super relevant now because, we're recording this in February. And for those who don't do extensions on their taxes, tax day is April 15th, right? So this is where, like now, literally now, you should be getting all of your bookkeeping. You should have been bookkeeping throughout. If you have a rental portfolio, you might want to hire a bookkeeper, but if you're just doing it yourself, you should have all of that throughout the year for 2022. You should be reviewing those files now, and getting your Schedule E's together and all of that stuff for your accountant or your tax professional or whoever you have. Getting that stuff together, figuring out what you spend on maintenance and this and that. If you have a property management company, a lot of the times they'll do some of this for you. So it's kind of like a collection of documents kind of a thing. But this is the time to do it. So you're not scrambling April 1st trying to figure out like, oh God, I got to do all this stuff. So keep that in mind. But Max is going to be here to give us some practical and tactical tips for people who do self-manage their books in order and make sure that they're good to go so tax time is not stressful, or it's not nearly as stressful as it has to be. So Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. Excited to get it going.
Yeah, so let's jump in like we always do in the ADPI podcast. I want to learn about you. So tell me about your military background and tell me kind of why and how you got started in the real estate game.
Sure, man. Sure. Yeah. So, taking it back, engineer by trade from South Carolina, started working as an engineer fresh out of college. Had the Marine Corps on the mind. Had tried actually in college to join the Marine Corps. But I had something in my medical record, that wouldn't allow me. It was like a disqualifier. It was, a condition with my back. And so started working as an engineer, Savannah River Nuclear Solutions down in South Carolina. About 3 months into it, I was just bored out of my mind. No offense to engineers. It's an awesome field, but I was just super bored. Kind of wanted to get out there and do something a little more active. And if I could serve my country, then that's an awesome bonus. So went through this whole medical cycle of getting that thing cleared and ended up, being able to qualify to go to officer candidate school and all that good stuff, the officer pipeline in the Marine Corps. So was able to join that. That was back in 2016, late 2016. So I went through the whole pipeline, became an artillery officer, served for a little over 4 years. I mean, that's pretty much the kind of the wave tops on the military service. And I actually found real estate investing, found out that it existed while I was in the Marine Corps. So I was deployed to the Pacific, doing the 31st MU Marine Expeditionary Unit. Mm-hmm. And we were actually on our way from Japan to Thailand. So we were in the South China Sea. If you've ever been on a ship before, you don't get things like Wi-Fi, be able to watch your shows and that sort of thing. So brought some books. One of the books that I brought was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that completely flipped the script for me. It blew my mind. I was like, wow, there's this whole other world out there. And I was kind of on the Dave Ramsey thing, kind of on those steps and saving a ton of money, especially over deployment, not much to spend money on. So saves a ton of money over deployment. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, okay, cool. I'm buying a duplex. I'm doing it. Read that book. I actually started submitting offers from Japan in the U.S. In South Carolina and North Carolina. Wow. The time difference was tough. I was up in the middle of the night speaking with realtors and that sort of thing, trying to get it going, and lenders, that whole thing. Ended up I didn't close on one while I was still in Japan, but we got back, and maybe a month later from getting back, closed on the first duplex, and it was kind of off to the races from there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people in our community, when they are overseas, they are underway or they're, whatever, they always use that as an excuse. It's like, oh, I'll get into real estate investing when whenever I get back stateside or whenever I have more time or, insert X excuse here. You found a way to overcome that. What were some of the things, some lessons learned while you were looking for deals in serving in Japan? Did you know, for example, that like, hey, I'm getting out in the next couple months and I'm going back to South Carolina and this is where I want to be? Was that kind of it? Or were you kind of in that exploring, looking phase and let me invest in South Carolina because that's where I'm from?
Yeah, so I had a competitive advantage in South Carolina because that was where I was from and
Mm-hmm.
grew up right below the North Carolina border. So I was pretty familiar with some parts of North Carolina as well. So I was really looking in places where I knew people and where I kind of knew the lay of the land, the neighborhoods, and that sort of thing. And so, I mean, I still had to build my team, right? Right after Rich Dad Poor Dad, I started reading Long Distance Real Estate Investing by David
Mm-hmm.
Green,
Mm-hmm.
because that's essentially what I was trying to do, right? So I'm like, I need a playbook to just walk me through, and that's an excellent tactical book. If anybody hasn't read that book and they're trying to invest at a distance, it's awesome.
Oh
It lays out
yeah,
the
he
questions.
literally like gives you like what email should you write to your real estate agent and like you just copy it. Well, I mean, you don't copy and paste it because it's a book, but you literally
Right,
like
right.
you old school copy and paste. You just copy it and you put
It's
that in there, and it
nuts.
works every single time. The first time I read that, and I was just like, oh wow, this is super easy.
Dude, yeah. I mean, he laid the whole thing out for you. What to ask your property manager, how to interview lenders and realtors, and like, everyone who you need on the ground if you're not there. I mean, that book just lays it out. It's essentially the blueprints. I was devouring that book, while I was making offers and got something under contract, and yeah, literally typed up, all the questions you're supposed to ask the property manager and all that. That book essentially got me through the first one. And as far as, kind of getting into it from a distance and from Japan, talk on the phone with realtors in the middle of the night, that sort of thing. There's actually something that Brandon Turner says, so I'll probably butcher it, but if you really want something, you'll find a way, right? If you don't, you'll find
Yeah.
an excuse. It's something to that effect. So I had that playing in my mind. I discovered Bigger Pockets while I was also in Japan on that same deployment, and started devouring those episodes. And I heard Brandon say that in one of the episodes. I was like, okay, I'll keep that. That's a good one. So yeah, man, really just pushing through it, and trying to talk to people who have done what I was trying to do. That made a huge difference.
It's funny you say that, and being in Japan and looking to invest. Co-founder of Active Duty Passive Income, Adam Labar, his first deal ever in real estate. He was stationed in Japan. He bought a 62 unit multifamily property.
What?
Yeah, like just jumped right in. But I mean, he was doing the same thing. It's just it's the same underwriting, the same process, just at scale. And he was able to raise the capital and do all the stuff, but all overseas. Yeah,
That
if
is nuts.
pretty much just what you said there, and what Brandon says, it's we can come up with excuses for everything, but I trust that the people taking the time right now to listen to this podcast, they're not going to be making excuses. They're just going to take action. And you don't have to take, like, I think the term taking action, I obviously throw that out like everywhere. It's one of the the three legs of the ADPI triad, right? Learn, network, take action. It's kind of throwing it out there. It's not like you have to take like massive action every single day. Just even doing the little things, like if you're overseas and emailing 5 realtors and scheduling appointments, literally takes you 10 minutes. You have a copy and paste email script. You go and find these realtors and you send it out there and you say exactly what you're looking for. Email them your criteria. That's it. 10 minutes. That action step is going to move the needle forward for you. But if you keep coming up with reasons in your head why you can't do something, then you won't. So it's
Absolutely.
all of this game is a mental game. So Max, you bought that duplex, and then what? Because you built a pretty sizable portfolio relatively quickly. So is there
Yeah.
some maybe nuggets that you'd like to share with folks who have closed their first deal and are looking to scale?
Yeah. So I wouldn't do it necessarily the way I did it, to be honest with you.
There's your first.
If I could
Don't
go
do
back,
this.
right? But I'll walk you through it. I think it was August 2019. I think it was whenever I closed on that duplex.
Mhm.
as soon as I close, renovations are underway. Another one pops up just like it, basically the same underwriting, same pro forma, all that stuff. And so pulled the trigger on that one, got under contract. So I'm a fan of the Burr method. I pretty much do the Burr method on almost everything we've purchased. So obviously I wasn't gonna be able to refinance the first one prior to buying the second one. So I was like, man, I don't have the money. So I was asking around, and I didn't know raising money was a thing at this time. I was just like, I have a good deal and I need money. So I'm just going to ask people. And so I basically went around asking for money, super uncomfortable. Started with family and friends and that sort of thing. And so my wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time, and she had just moved in with me in California where I was stationed. And asked her. I knew her dad had kind of an entrepreneurial background and spirit. So I was just like, would your parents want to invest in this? I think I only needed $30K. So not a huge amount of money. They ended up investing. So it was, her mom and her dad, they each put in 10,000 to get me to my 30K.
Wow.
And I was able to close on it. Thankfully, it was.
So you got your girlfriend to invest in a deal with you?
I did.
Dang.
Yeah. She's always been super duper supportive of this stuff, and
that's amazing.
Yeah, she's been a rock in this process.
Yeah. So, oh wow, that's incredible. And that's the thing with raising capital. Like the first time you do it, you always feel like you're asking for money. And I always say you're never asking for money. You're providing an opportunity. And if you can flip that switch in your
Love
mind,
that.
the money comes to you. It really, really does, because everyone is constantly thinking about what to do with their money. I mean, I'm always thinking about it. I just, a month and a half ago sold one of my assets, and I'm just like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, what do I do with this massive chunk of money? Like, it's stressful. It's like, golly. It's funny. Like, you think like not having money is stressful, and it sounds like conceited and like I'm like a 1%er now, but it's like, no, kind of having money is stressful too. Like just sitting there as an investor. Yeah. I think as a saver, you're just like, yeah, I'm comfortable in like this thing. If I'm a Dave Ramsey type, but I'm not.
For sure.
I'm an investor. I'm constantly looking to, make that money work for me and make money move. So like when that money's not being deployed and I have it, I'm just like, ooh, what do I do?
Totally. I'm like allergic to cash. Yeah. I know. I'm seriously, I have my reserves, and anything over that reserve amount, I'm like, I gotta put it somewhere. Like it's like you said, it like makes me anxious. I'm like, I gotta put it to work. Like I can't.
Yeah, because everyone has their number. Yeah, like everyone has their reserves, their number. Like, hey, listen, and we're talking like healthy reserves. We're talking like, hey, medical emergency. We gotta something that's gonna, at least, what I tell people is at least 6 months of living expenses, probably plus another 30% for just in case emergency something happens. Then anything on top of that, there's no need to just hoard cash. It's actively losing money it's actively losing value to inflation. Put it to work, whether it's a whole life insurance policy, another real estate deal, whatever it is, just put it to work, because at the end of the day, time is the commodity. And the earlier you invest, the more you'll be able to bear the fruits of that labor, if you will, of just finding that deal. Just holding on to it just makes no sense. And it's funny, there's someone close to me, and I'll go off on this tangent, but there's someone close to me who had over $100,000, and they just gave it to Morgan Stanley financial advisor. But they told the financial advisor, I wanted to be like, give me the least risky option. Like they were like allergic to risk, right? So they put, the Morgan Stanley, you tell them what to do, they'll do it. They put it in this, savings account that accrued 0.01% APY.
Oof.
And it was the safest possible account that JP Morgan had. And we looked at the statement, and in 3 years, it's made like $10 a year. And this person freaked out, and they're like, wait, what? This isn't growing? And they talked to the advisor, and the advisor's like, well, you said I did exactly what you told me. And that person, to be fair, the advisor's not wrong. But like, yeah, the general public just thinks that like, the people who are so risk averse, it kills them. And that's 3 years of potential growth just gone nowhere, like
Hmm.
nowhere. So anyway, tangent over.
Dude, that happens so
so,
often.
so
I've seen that
often.
as well, especially within like people who are close to you.
Mhm.
And you never want to tell somebody else what to do with their money, right? But it's kind of hard when people are close to you because you want the best for them, and then they do something like that, and it's like, that's a painful lesson. But we
Bro,
could have
I tell
avoided
people what to do with their money on this
it.
podcast every damn week.
As you should, as you should.
Actually, no. Now I have to put a disclaimer. This is not financial advice. Consult your attorney and
Yes,
tax
yes.
advisors. This is just financial education. Yeah. But no. In all seriousness, and getting back to the point here. Yeah. So you were kind of doing the Burr method, and you were scaling, and you got your family to invest in this deal. So now you're up to 4 units. Then what happens?
Yeah, so then I take a little pause, just to kind of reassess, like, do I want to
Sure.
continue to do this same thing, or do I want to grow a little faster? And I still had maybe a year left in the Marine Corps. So I wasn't, at least for that portion of time, we were going to still be in Southern California, investing at a distance. So
Mhm.
around that same time, it was like perfect timing. After I was kind of in the middle of rehabbing that second duplex, reconnected with a college buddy. We were like best friends in college. We went our separate ways, hadn't spoken in a few years. And so we were catching up, and he just out of the blue, I never mentioned it. He out of the blue started talking about real estate investing, started talking about, rentals, flipping, just the whole thing. He was very interested in that. He had some cash sitting around, and he had access to capital as well. Cause, being in a workplace with a lot of young engineers, he is an engineer. Everybody's trying to figure out where to put their money. Right. So,
Sure.
so we formed a partnership and ended up, purchasing, basically doing the Burr method together, but raising private capital to do it. So we started raising money right out of the gate. I think our first purchase early 2020, I believe. Couple of duplexes as a pair.
It's like a portfolio kind of
Yeah,
situation.
we went back to the same guy, bought another couple of duplexes after a few months, and then then we were off to the races as a partnership, and that's kind of how we scaled on that side. And so got out of the Marine Corps. My wife and I went to Utah, like northeastern Utah. We just thought it'd be a cool place to live and kind of start this new chapter. A lot of outdoor stuff to do there. So and so we ended up purchasing a duplex, and house hacking it. So
Nice.
now in the personal portfolio, we have 6 units, living in one, and then the other 5 are rented out. So so yeah, that house hack worked super well. Used the VA loan on it, which I try to get information out any chance I can about the VA
Mm-hmm.
loan. If you have served or if you are serving, like, it is phenomenal. We bought I think it was like 350 or $360,000 duplex. Um, and this is right before the market took off too. So I was like, man, I kind of feel like we're overpaying. And
Sure.
then after we purchased it and we're house hacking it, then the market just blew up. And I'm like, wow, so glad we bought that. But so $360,000 asset for, I think the closing costs were like 5 or 6 grand. I mean,
Nice.
it's nuts. The VA loan is
And do
amazing
you
if you
still
have
have
that
that?
option.
Are you there right now?
So we moved out of it. We lived there for, I think, a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and then moved out of it, and we kept it. We're just renting it,
Mm-hmm.
as a long-term rental. Both units, it cash flows very, very well. And I actually pulled a HELOC on it too, to have just more access to capital to be able to invest. So yeah, I mean, that I think that purchase has probably been our most valuable, like, investment I think we've ever made.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy because I had a similar story. Bought a quad for 350, and 4 years later sold it for 815.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
but it was with the VA. I mean, I think I
Wow.
was all in like $3,300 out of
Yep.
pocket at closing in 2018. So I was like,
So wild.
okay, like this is pretty sweet. And yeah, it's just having that in your back pocket is so powerful. And it's like really the the cornerstone of what we teach at Active Duty Passive Income is if you're trying to get started and you have access to that, this is how you can best leverage that. Stay within the rules, stay within the law, and do it the right way, but do everything that you just did, Max, and it's a great like wealth builder. Way better than, I don't even know if like USA and Navy Fed do it anymore. They used to do like the career starter loans. Like way better than that. It's definitely an awesome thing. So you've built up your portfolio now. So how many doors do you have right now?
So we have 22 doors right now. So actually, my wife and I are closing on another house hack tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So we're
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. So yeah, with that purchase, it'll be 22 doors, and of course, we'll be living in one of the doors.
That's awesome. And you're still in the Utah area, or are you somewhere else?
Yeah, we bounced around a lot, man. We're in North Carolina now, so kind of wanted to get closer back to family, and
Sure.
we love the mountains, just outdoors scene in general. So yeah, we found a nice spot in North Carolina, right outside of Asheville. That's where this house hack will be.
Awesome. Let's talk about what we promised we were going to tell the people about, and that's bookkeeping. Bookkeeping. Oh, stress,
Gross.
anxiety. Oh, gross. Yeah, bookkeeping. What drew you, or was it just the engineer mindset and kind of the math brain? Did that draw you to bookkeeping and actually starting this as a business for yourself, or was it just like the necessity of, hey, I have these rentals now, and someone's got to do it, and you just got good at it?
A little bit of both. So about a year and a half into my personal investing journey, you get around a lot of other investors. You want to get around other people that are doing what you're doing, so you can learn and you can just hash things out. So I was going to meetups and virtual meetups, masterminds, and all sorts of things. And a trend that I found with kind of the non-corporate real estate investors, so like us, and
Mm-hmm.
probably like most of the people who were listening to this, the big trend I saw was most were a little unclear on their numbers, so didn't totally know their numbers. Most had cash flow issues, and most didn't have enough time because they're working a full-time job or maybe a part-time job. They have families. They're also doing real estate investing, and even if you're someone who does real estate investing full-time, until you scale, you're probably pretty short on time. Those three things, I was like, okay, I've always nerded out on numbers, nerded out on finances, especially. So I'm like, okay, what's kind of something that I can create that will help with these issues? So maybe not solve the issues, but at least help with them, kind of with my tribe, with real estate investors.
Sure.
So yeah, that's Time Capital Bookkeeping and CFO Solutions was essentially born out of that. I went through a course, got certified. Worked it as a freelancer for a while, just kind of testing different things out, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work. And then eventually, brought on team members, scaled the business. And this is my bread and butter business. Love real estate investing. I'm still heavily involved in real estate investing, but yeah, this is really my bread and butter.
That's awesome. So it's not tax services. It's just bookkeeping, right?
Correct. No tax services, no property management, things like
Sure.
that. Like just purely accounting, bean counting, bookkeeping, whatever you want to
So
call it.
yeah. So let's talk about this. Why is bookkeeping important, and at what stage should an investor in their investing career consider bringing on a professional bookkeeper like yourself?
Mm, man, yeah, I get asked that second question all the time. It's important because so if you don't have a set of bookkeeping records, whether it's just an Excel spreadsheet or it's QuickBooks or it's Stessa or, whatever,
Mhm.
AppFolio, whatever it is, if you don't have something tracking what's coming in and where it's coming from, what's going out and where it's going to, and then what you're keeping, you really don't know where you're at financially in your business. And personally too, you should be doing this personally as well through a budget or however you want to do it. But yeah, it's that first step. I mean, you really can't even manage your cash flow unless, or, have the knowledge to say, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger on this next investment responsibly if you don't know your numbers. That everything starts with knowing your numbers, and you can't know your numbers without bookkeeping.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and you mentioned a couple of tools there. So personally, I'm a big fan of Mint for my personal stuff. And,
I've heard of that one.
my wife and I track our net worth monthly. We track our personal expenses. We figure out what we're spending money on. We have budgets in there. We know when we go over budget on something. We know when we're under budget on something. It's very detailed, and it connects all of our accounts, which is really cool. And then
Awesome.
for the other side, Stessa is a great tool I've used in the past to, all of our accounts for the real estate is hooked up into there. Now I have a
Hmm.
property manager, and they do a lot of this. So like any maintenance or anything like that, it's all written out on those financial statements. But you can log into Stessa, and Stessa reads that, and it knows that this is maintenance on this property, on this unit, and all of that stuff. And then it's just a matter of updating those records, at least once a quarter, and making sure that everything's good to go. But pretty easy, to make
Absolutely.
happen. And I would also say, like, if you don't know what you have, money coming in and going out, and we talked about at the top of the show, but like for tax purposes, I mean, when you work with an accountant, your accountant's not the one that's going to do your bookkeeping unless you pay for that
Hmm.
service. Like your accountant's going to say, like, hey, give me all give me your cash flow statements, your P&L. And if you're like, what is that? Then
Oh
they're going to
yeah.
be like, you need to get that, or we're not going to be able to deduct anything from, like we need that, because we have to fill
Hmm.
out the Schedule E for long-term real estate investing. So it's like,
Hmm.
you got to do that. So that second question, like, when should people get involved with a professional?
Yeah. So if there's kind of, every situation is very specific, especially for real estate investors. You can have a real estate investor with one property and they kind of just do it on the side. Or you could have, we have a client with right around 200 rental units, and, they flip 20 plus properties a year. Kind of the full spectrum, like in I just call it like the mom and pop or like non-corporate real estate investor space. It's so drastic. So
Mm-hmm.
for the individual, you really need to assess really those three things that I brought up. Do you know your numbers? And so if you don't know your numbers, per property and then kind of overall, why don't you know your numbers? Is it because you don't have enough time to do your books? Do you have time, but you're just like allergic to it? You're just like,
I just don't like it.
I
I mean, there's
just
people
hate
that
it. Yeah.
there are
Yeah. You just,
investors who don't like
yeah.
numbers. I mean, that's fine.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. And especially in partnerships, you have those
Mm-hmm.
complementary partnerships, the number person, and then the raising capital person, or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, you really just need to kind of exercise some self-awareness. Just why don't I know my numbers? And do I have the cash flow to support possibly hiring a professional to do this? You mentioned kind of going to a CPA to, and you don't really have your financial things that you need in order. A lot of CPA firms out there they will do it for you. And I have friends who have kind of fallen into this. But you kind of need to be aware of that situation, because they may be charging $150 an hour to do
Yeah.
something that you could have gotten a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that
Exactly.
I've seen that situation so many times. So if you don't, kind of the other side of the question as well is, if you are doing your books, are you spending too much time and mental energy on that task that you could just
Mm-hmm.
outsource, and you could spend more time on those, like revenue generating activities within your business? That's a huge one.
Yeah.
So it's, kind of have to weigh that whole picture.
I'll go on and put this caveat out there that, for long-term rental real estate, the bookkeeping is relatively easy. I mean,
Hmm.
we're talking rents coming in, mortgage and expenses going out, maintenance expenses going out. Your mortgage already includes your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, right? So then the other things that you're tracking is pretty much, your maintenance and any capital expenses. So of that maintenance, are we talking hot water heaters, roofs, air conditioning units, stuff like that? You just
Hmm.
kind of tag it, if you will, and you could do it on a spreadsheet if you want, or you can use Stessa, or you can use this. It's relatively easy for long-term real estate investing. Where I personally got super involved in the bookkeeping, and implementing the profit first method was with my short-term rentals, because that is just a lot more active. I mean, we're talking paying the cleaners, we're talking rents coming in from different platforms, from Airbnb and VRBO and booking.com and all of this stuff, and multiple units, and all kinds of different crazy expenses like supplies and all of this stuff. So that's when I brought on QuickBooks. And
Mm.
I mean, I do the bookkeeping myself, honestly, because I like it and I like to understand the health of my business. I spend maybe a week on those short-term rentals. I don't know. I mean, to match the transactions. QuickBooks has gotten so good at just like you build rules in there. So it knows, for example, like when a charge comes through from my cleaner on this credit card, it knows to assign it based on the value amount. It knows to assign it to this property. And it's just like, it just comes up with a message like, would you like to review this and make sure it's okay? And I click one button. It's like reviewed, done, it's tagged.
Yeah.
Everything's like it. So there's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of done for you in the software, which is great. And it's like, I don't know, $25 a month or something, like
Hmm.
not a significant amount of money. So that's where I got really involved kind of personally on the bookkeeping side, but continuing to scale that business would require someone, I can have someone else do the matching of the transactions and making sure everything is squared away there. And that's where I would bring a bookkeeper on board just to do that. But I certainly wouldn't pay a CPA $150, $200 an hour to go and do
Yeah.
this at the end of the year and like try to figure out, oh, hey, here's like, honestly, for my stuff, Max, I actually let my CPA into my QuickBooks account, and they just pull all the reports that they need, and it's done. Like
That's
I can
amazing.
grant them access, and it's just like, here you go, take it, run with it, and call me if you have any questions, and the whole thing's done. It's amazing. So because they
Awesome.
use QuickBooks and they know exactly what they need to get. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
I would, Kevin. If you came into our firm, you'd probably be like the dream client, right? Like you have your. I mean, I'm being just based on what you've said. Obviously, I haven't seen your accounts, but
It's
I
all
mean,
tagged differently and just wrong, and it's just like
right.
mess.
But I mean, it sounds like you have your financial accounts kind of figured out. There's a rhyme or reason for why each account exists, and yeah, you're putting rules in place, and yeah, it sounds like you're doing an awesome job. It's really when especially just investors just starting out, let's say 0 to 10 units or whatever it is, maybe they still have everything coming through a personal checking account. I mean, we see this all the time, and so you have a ton of personal transactions mixed with business transactions, and now we have to kind of separate everything out, and we have to say, okay, now what goes to 123 Main Street versus 124 Main Street, and then we start getting into entity structures and all of that. So as a real estate investor, and I know that 95+% of our transactions that that we need to factor into our business, that transaction needs to go to a specific entity, to a specific property, sometimes to a specific unit, within a property, within an entity. And so it can get crazy really fast. And so that's kind of where the professional bookkeeper comes in, if you don't want to spend a whole lot of time and energy trying to figure that out. And something that we find is that the profit and loss statement, we call it the income statement, it's usually decent whenever we inherit someone's books, a real estate investor's books, but it's usually the balance sheet that is like crazy off. Like nothing's been reconciled. You know, building basis versus land basis hasn't been factored in. Like depreciation hasn't been factored
Oh
in.
gosh, yeah.
CapEx is like miscategorized. So yeah, kind of those facets. But yeah, so if we get a client like you, I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
And another benefit of staying on top of your numbers, not only personally to figure out how your business is doing, but if you're ever looking to refinance the asset or go through a
Mm,
disposition and sell the asset, you want to, if you're selling an asset that is designed for investors, duplex, triplex, quadplexes, things like that, most savvy buyers, most are going to ask for a P&L. They're going to ask for something. And if you have to be like, oh God, I have to go and whip this up and do all this stuff. But if you have your QuickBooks set up or something and you just print off a report, I mean, even personally, I'm going through, we're looking at purchasing residential assisted living homes, and we're
Awesome.
working with a seller right now. And the seller goes and sends, I mean, these are, multi-million dollar homes and assets with, they're doing 60 to $100,000 a month in revenue. And he's sending Excel spreadsheets. And I'm like, yo,
Oof.
no, I want a P&L from an accounting software. I don't care which
Mm-hmm.
one, but I don't want to see something that can be manipulated by just you typing in numbers. Like,
100%.
like
100%.
that is a deal killer for me. Like, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have that together, then you're not serious. You're not serious. Don't call yourself an investor. If you have your ducks in a row, you're just more in tune to your business, the health of your business. You have a pulse of what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and when it is time to sell, you can easily get the information to prospective buyers, make their process easier, and it makes everyone's life easier. So, yeah, there's so many benefits to having professional bookkeeping, even just any bookkeeping, but if you need it, professional bookkeeping, on board. So that's some really good points that Max you brought up there. So I love that. All right, man. Well, I think it's time. We're running out of time, so I got to take you to the bonus round,
All right.
and we'll ask you the same 4 questions we ask every other guest. You ready?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Question number 1: what book or software has really been crushing it for you lately?
So, book Profit First for Real Estate Investing by David Richter. So I've actually been chatting with David the past few months, connecting with him just via social media. I read his book a while back, I think when it first came out, but it's based off of Mike McAllister's,
Mhm.
if I said his name right,
No one
book
knows how to say
Profit.
his name.
Yeah, yeah. I struggle every time.
Yeah.
So his book, original book, Profit First, it's a spinoff of that specifically for real estate investing, and it is awesome. And David actually has a company called Simple CFO Solutions, and they specialize in Profit First and specialize in implementing that cash flow management system specifically for real estate investors. So yeah, read that book. It's a very quick read. I have it behind me in the screen. I recommend it to literally everybody.
Yeah, it's an incredible book, and it's actually required reading if anyone listening here is joining the Short Term Rental Academy or has joined the Short Term Rental Academy and cohort.
Hmm.
It's required to read during the academy because it's
Oh,
that
that's awesome.
powerful. Um, not the real estate one. I haven't read that one, so I need to go and do my homework and read that one, just the regular Profit First. But that in my first year of running short term rentals, I had read Profit First before I started, and I was like, I'm just gonna try this out. Like I'd never done it before, and I was like, I got nothing to lose. I'm starting a new business. Who the heck cares? And
Oh
I
yeah.
did it. And long story short, I was able to travel to Paris, Portugal, Raleigh, New York City twice. All of these things, all because I was taking a profit from my business.
Oh, that's so amazing.
So
That
like
is amazing. I
it
love
I
hearing
was
that.
yeah, and I was just like super hooked on it. And I still run it for the short term rental business, and it's great because we're able to actually have a business that makes sense and not worry and not and just you can read the book, you'll understand. All right, awesome. Question number 2: who's your biggest hero and why?
Yeah, so that would be my mom. So she, I don't know how often you get that answer,
Hey man,
but
it's often this question can be anyone you want, and it
yeah,
ranges the spectrum, but I think it's a powerful question to ask because it keeps people grounded.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean, she. So I have a brother, and I mean, she essentially raised us, almost as a single mom. I mean, my dad and her are still together, right? That they've always been together, but he has always traveled during the week, and so we essentially only saw him on the weekends. So it was all up to mom. Like I didn't recognize any of this until I was an adult. I was like, wow, it was almost like mom was a single mom raising us, working full time, involved in the church, involved in the community, just doing all these amazing things. And yeah, I mean, she's still my biggest mentor. I go to her all the time for just everything in life. So yeah, she's a big part of who I am.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And yeah, it's super important as any investor or anyone listening to this podcast, doesn't matter who you are, investor or just a human being, staying humble and understanding your roots and where you came from
Mm.
is really the thing that defines you. It's that first metric that defines who you are, and staying in tune with that and staying humble is a great way to relate to other people. And that's why I love asking these questions to folks. I think it's really powerful. Question number 3, lightening up a little bit. What do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, so love spending time with my wife. We do most things together. We love the outdoors, so snowboarding, hiking, camping, off-roading, just working out, kind of you name it. We like to do it outdoors. So and I used to, so when I was in California, Southern California, I train Brazilian Jiu Jitsu a lot. That's kind of like the mecca within America for for that martial art.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that we're getting a little more stable, moving to North Carolina, and I'm looking to get back into Jiu Jitsu. That was a large part of my life at one point.
That's super cool, man. Yeah, I'm sure that you'll find a lot of places where you're at. You know, they're all over the place, and it's just a matter of finding the people and getting back in the gym.
Definitely.
Final question for you, Max. For folks who are listening to this podcast and they're considering, they're thinking about their books and they're thinking about their cash flow statements and bookkeeping and all of that stuff. What are 3 nuggets of wisdom you can share with a relatively new investor with regards to bookkeeping, or just really general investing nuggets that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I would say for anything, especially, I mean, this definitely pertains to real estate and bookkeeping as well. Keeping the books tight is just consistent daily action over like intense, inconsistent action. I would probably say that's the biggest thing. Something that really helped me and has helped a lot of other people as well is just networking as much as possible. So especially with those investors that are maybe 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 years ahead of you in their journey, man, pick their brains every chance you get, because someone who's been doing this for 20 years and owns however many units or whatever, they may not even remember how it was to start in this game, to kind of get started, and all the fear, all the risk associated with that. Just kind of the mental portion of that. So yeah, 1 to 3 years ahead of you. And then just taking ownership, that's really everything, just taking 100% ownership over everything you do every single day. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a huge believer in everything that he kind of preaches on that. So
Yeah. I mean, it's super important just to understand um, how your mind works, and taking ownership of stuff. And it kind of goes back to that statement I said about, being humble and being kind of self-aware enough to know that, like, hey, listen, it's okay that I've been screwing up. It's okay that I haven't been keeping the tightest books or any books at all. Let's not have a pity party about it. Or, or you can do the Hal Elrod thing, and you can be upset for 5 minutes. You know, you can be upset at yourself
put your
for
timer on.
5 minutes. Yeah, put your timer on, feel all the feels, and it's healthy to do that. But then it's time to take ownership and say, okay, this is where I'm at. Now let's figure a way to. I dug myself a little bit of a hole. Let's figure out a way to get out. And it's not hard. And when you're doing that figuring process, remember one thing: who, not how. Who in your network
Mm.
can you contact to figure out, to just have a conversation and say, oh, this is what I need to do, or share an idea, or give you a book recommendation, or do something. So no one is alone out there. You
That's
have
huge.
to leverage your network. You have to. And that's what I'm constantly thinking about. Literally, part of my day, time blocked into my day, is a who, not how, where I have 30 minutes and I just sit there and reflect and say, okay, here are the problems that I'm facing right now. Instead of, banging my head against my desk trying to figure out how to do it myself, who can I call? Who can I text? Who can I
Mm.
reach out to on social media? Who can I email to figure out, who I think has done this before? And guess what? If they haven't done it before, all right, they might know someone who has. And
Hmm.
that's the magic of networking. So
Love
Max
it,
is,
man.
yeah, that is super incredible interview, man. For folks who want to get in touch with you, where do they go? How can they do that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm all over social, Time Capital BCS. So Time Capital BCS, Bravo Charlie Sierra. You can even just email me, max@timecapitalbcs.com. And yeah, I'm out there. Reach out.
Awesome. Max, thanks so much for coming on the show. We super appreciate it, and I'm sure we will be talking again shortly.
Awesome. Sounds good, Kevin. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
No worries, brother.